I've never done a radio hit with Our Lady of Fatima before.
I'm trying to fashion a burqa. Charlie.
I feel like Jennifer Jones. Oh, lady.
Charlie.
Yes.
I just want to drive over there and fix it.
That's terrible.
Charlie, help me.
She's got a bag over her head.
I can't. Oh my God.
Okay. Listen, there's something more important going on now. Voting rights. Listen, you are, as I said, both a girl watcher. You're a girl watcher and a Supreme Court watcher. So let's talk about what's at the Supreme Court, right? Because this is a major test for voting rights. As you were saying, I think many times, you're not hopeful because of John Roberts, right? Already saying racism's over, right?
That's the one issue he's dedicated his entire career to. So, no, I'm not hopeful. I've been listening because I have absolutely no life. I was not only watching Christopher Wray on TV, but listening to the Supreme Court oral arguments. It seems to be splitting along the usual lines. No, I'm not optimistic. But it's entirely possible that they might let Section 2 stand and then let their pals out in the States do all the dirty work.
Yeah. Well,
and when those laws start coming before them, then they'll uphold them.
So for people that don't, follow this like Charlie Pierce does, as Republicans in nearly every state push new voting restrictions in the aftermath of the 2020 election, U.S. Supreme Court today, now, hearing a major case to decide how those new rules should be judged under federal civil rights laws, state legislators in at least 43 states are considering more than 250 bills that would make it harder to vote. Sponsors of the measures say they're necessary to prevent fraud. Civil rights advocates claim they primarily suppress minority voters. No kidding. Sponsors of the measures, at the heart of the case is the landmark Voting Rights Act of 1965, which prohibits racial discrimination in voting and lays out the standard for determining when it exists. So I think you were talking about Section 2.
Section 2 is the part of the Voting Rights Act that was left intact.
Right.
So that's Shelby County.
Right. That's
after John Roberts declared the day of Jubilee, we don't have racism in this country anymore, and gutted the pre-clearance provisions.
So, right, more than 159
and basically Section 2 says if you can prove you were discriminated against, then you can sue, which is great, except then you still haven't voted.
Right. So more than 150.
You're going to make a couple of $100 10 years from now after having your vote suppressed.
Right. So more than 159 million Americans voted in 2020. That was 66.8% of the eligible voting population, a historic turnout not seen in more than a century, thanks in part to the surge in voting by mail, which is what they're obviously saying, oh my God, we have to put a stop to that. So it centers on two Arizona election laws that Democrats say discriminate against Native American, Latinx, and African American voters. I mean, Charlie, the case that always strikes me is the judge that says they are disenfranchising minority voters with almost surgical precision. I mean, I forget.
Yeah, that was the federal judge in North Carolina, and he's right. And if you look at the debates in the state legislatures, a lot of those guys don't hide it. Mm-hmm. A lot of those guys are saying, "Look, this is the only way we win elections."
Right.
Now, I could argue that, hey, maybe you want to start appealing to these voters, but that seems like it's too hard.
Yeah. But I mean, it really is. It's Heidi Heitkamp's race.
That's why statehood for DC and Puerto Rico is resisted. So, every time you talk about statehood for DC, some Republicans will say, well, you just want to add 2 Senate seats for the Democrats. Well, you don't have to. You can contest those seats.
It seems to me it's
not like they're going to forbid Republicans from running for the Senate from the new state of District of Columbia.
But it would seem like the ham-handedness and obviousness of it should help legally, but I don't know. I was bringing up Heidi Heitkamp's race. It's like, oh, she gets a Native American vote. Oh, how do we stop that? Oh, I know. We'll make sure they have to have postal addresses, which they don't have. Right, like students are going to vote in Texas. Oh, how do we make sure you can't use a student ID? Everybody that would vote Democratic, they figure out a way to just say, oh, this is about
Yeah,
fraud.
in Texas, you can't use a student ID, but you can use your gun permit.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. Exactly. Well, so
There's nothing ideological about that at all.
but this is why we're going to have to do this in
My God,
Congress.
Chuck Grassley's old.
Yes, I see him right now on TV.
Oh, I'm sorry that startling news came to you right now.
He's also dressed like Ward Cleaver's grandfather.
And Bob Seska is right. He does sound like Jody. What's that? I'm going to boil this little rabbit. Who's that? Which character is that? He does sound like that guy.
Oh, and Buffalo Bill?
I'm going to
yes.
catch a rabbit.
Buffalo
I'm
Bill
going to
from-
cook him up. That guy. Whatever cartoon guy that is.
Oh, cartoon guy.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he sounds like Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Oh, he does sound like that too. Yes. Push the lotion on his arms.
Oh, I think if we go to the Grassley farm, we'll find human heads in a refrigerator.
Oh, dear.
Any question about that?
Bob
Allegedly.
says,
I didn't mean that. That
Bob's-
wasn't libelous.
Allegedly.
Bob
That was
Seska,
Allegedly.
satire.
Bob
The
Seska, if
Second
you're,
Little Show.
if you're
just
listening,
engaged
Bob,
us
please
no
call
time.
us and tell us which cartoon character Chuck Grassley sounds like. I'm going to get a little rabbit. I'm going to catch a little
But they
rabbit.
gave him a statement to read where he's basically, what abouting the whole insurrection thing, and
Oh,
he just
God.
stumbled through it. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, Charlie,
But-
I've been ranting about that all morning, that it's just like, what? Black Lives Matter and Antifa were not involved. Why would we have to have an investigation that also looks at them? It's so infuriating. We have to play this whataboutism, both sides do it game on everything, right?
Well, yeah, and this is supposed to be a hearing on one specific event.
Right. Exactly.
It's not unfair that they're not including everything Chuck Grassley wants to be afraid of.
Yeah.
That's not unfair.
By
This
the
is about the events of January 6th and the events leading up to it.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Senate Judiciary, of course, advanced Merrick Garland's nomination for Attorney General. Do you think there's any connection here, Charlie? Voting against him would be Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz. And then a totally unrelated story, Garland said he would not rule out investigating those who funded, organized, led, and otherwise aided the attacks. He said, we begin with the people on the ground. We work our way up to those who are involved and further involved, and we will pursue those leads wherever they take us. Any connection between those two things, Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz not voting for him, do you think?
Oh, I would guess that, you'd have to really stretch to find a connection between that. And by the way,
I
By
hope,
the way, I
hope it's Mitch McConnell's
we-
worst nightmare that he didn't put him on the Supreme Court,
I just got a text from Bob Seska.
Yes,
He said Grassley sounds like Pete Puma.
That's
it. That's it. A
Yes.
little, I'm going to boil
Oh,
a
3
little.
or 4.
I'm going to boil
Yeah.
a little rabbit.
Gotta cook them and grab them and eat them up.
I like the fact that Bob Seska,
Oh,
Does
a
show-
lot of lumps.
what was the question again?
What's that? I don't remember now. Let's move on to your fantastic piece about Trump was bored by his own speech until he got to the revenge list, which is so true. You said it was the pure, uncut, evil juju that had been missing from his life for months, and generous demon from the depths of hell that he is. He shared it with all the minions gathered at CPAC. He
Oh, yeah,
really
I mean,
did. It was
he had-
boring until he was able to list names, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. There was a long anti-immigrant passage in the speech that even he sounded bored by.
Yeah.
And they're not building the wall, and then he got to his hit list, and I guarantee you he doesn't know half those congressmen.
Yeah. Oh,
He
no.
wouldn't know Anthony Gonzalez if he sat in his lap.
Yeah.
Right.
But he knows the name because the name
Yeah.
voted against him.
Yeah.
And so they gave him a list of names to read, and that really got his juices going. I mean,
Yeah.
he was able to summon up the old fire for that one.
Yeah. So speaking of Trump-
other than that, it was an awful speech and to a terrible audience.
Yeah. Fat Orange Elvis had already left the building halfway through his own speech. Charlie, speaking of Grassley and cooking rabbits, how cooked is Andrew Cuomo's goose? What do you?
I hope thoroughly.
Yeah.
What a creep.
Kathleen Rice has already called for his resignation, so it's a third woman has come forward. I would say
Yeah,
my
apparently there's a third woman now.
my initial reaction because of Franken and then also what they tried to do to Joe Biden, I was like, oh, but then like the more that comes out, you're like, it's just he is
Yeah,
not.
but
And the way he's handled
the
it
way
has
he's
been
handled it.
really.
Yeah.
Andrew Cuomo has been a creep for a lot of other reasons for a long time.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
And he was a stumbling block against progressive politics in New
And-
York for decades.
Yeah.
Listen, I did
the way he's handled his reaction to this has been really thuggish.
Yeah.
And I don't like how he's reacted.
Well, here's the thing, SNL did the joke, but it's kind of, there's always humor and truth when they said, allegations where you go, yeah, I can believe that. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's why with Joe Biden, you're like, oh my God, come on. That's not Joe Biden, but Andrew Cuomo. Yeah. I mean, obviously I don't know. It's just, I do get Jody reflexively that there seems to be two sets of rules always for Democrats.
Yeah.
Like, that we immediately make people resign. And Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley are insurrectionists. And, Ted Cruz left people to freeze in his state. They never even consider resigning. So,
excuse me, Donald Trump is a rapist.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
And they don't care,
these guys
Charlie.
have no problem lining up with him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they don't care. I mean, they honestly, the Madison
Well, that's the difference.
Madison
I mean,
Cawthorn is very credible.
Once you've done away with morality, everything else is easy.
Right. Right. Yeah, Madison Cawthorn is, apparently allegedly a sexual predator on top of a complete liar.
Isn't he everybody you hated in college?
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. And I don't care where you went to college. If you went to Harvard or you went to, Cape Cod Community College, he was the kind of person you hated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so what do you predict on the Cuomo thing?
Ass-kissing sociopaths. What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and obviously there's investigations, as there should be, of not just the women, but also the nursing home stuff. And again, I don't know the particulars. I don't live in New York, so I didn't know the particulars of it. But the nursing home stuff looks worse than I thought it did at first. Because at first I thought, okay, well the numbers were right, but it was that they died in the hospital and not in the nursing home. But if it was deliberate, I mean, that right there is obviously egregious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, but again, that's a policy decision.
Right.
That's a political mistake that you can punish at the ballot box.
Right.
I mean, I don't think you're going to find that he did anything malicious.
Yeah.
In that, I mean, maybe you can make a case that he wanted things to look better, so he made this decision based on his own political advantage or his perceived political advantage. I don't know. I don't know enough about the situation to say. I've just never been a fan of the guy. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, he did okay for about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the pandemic.
Compared to Donald Trump, anybody looked great in terms of coronavirus
Well, yeah, I mean,
response.
but
he did do a good job. Yeah, for that. But listen, I did my part. I went to a fundraiser for Cynthia Nixon out here. I did my part, Charlie. I did all I could do. All right.
Cynthia Nixon of course, she had a fundraiser.
Yes.
She's an actor.
She ran for governor.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I got to hang out with.
Of course, Adam Swan was.
I got to hang out with Sarah Paulson and Holland Taylor. I don't know. Shoot me.
Well, now and they were dating at the time, right?
Who?
Yes.
Still are.
I think they still are.
Yes, they still are. Yes.
Yeah.
Are they still? Are they still coupled up?
Oh, Charlie, keep up. And Lady Gaga got her.
I can't keep up with Hollywood lesbians.
Lady Gaga got her bulldogs back.
God.
That's the important thing.
Yeah, I know. They attacked the dog walker.
They shot. Someone shot her dog walker and stole her dogs.
Mm-hmm.
She got the dogs back. The dog walker's okay, but was seriously.
Well, let's spare a prayer for the dog walker, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I'm glad Lady Gaga got her.
Yeah,
got
so
her
much
puppies
attention's
back.
been
But,
yeah, but nobody's paid attention to the dog walker, and that's kind of disturbed me a little bit.
yeah,
Right.
that poor sap is in the hospital.
Yeah.
Bullet wounds.
Yeah.
That whole thing is weird. So some
You
woman.
take a job to make extra money as a dog walker. You don't expect to get shot
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes, and
unless you're walking dogs in Baghdad.
yeah. If I had a dog walker, that would already be, it'd be actually you'd have to list it as
If you had a
the
dog walker,
Iditarod.
Jamie would have eaten him by now.
This is true.
Would you like to be part of the Iditarod and walk my dogs? Yeah. No, it was a weird story, right? A woman brought the dogs back to the police. They don't think she was involved, but they don't know how. It's just a weird story.
It is.
They were
weird.
tied up to a pole in an alley, apparently.
Why would you shoot a dog walker and take dogs? I don't understand. Did they know?
And then leave them.
Did the person know they were Lady
French
Gaga's
bulldogs
dogs?
are very, very valuable on the black market. They are.
Yes. Okay. So what? You steal the dogs. You go to all this trouble to steal the dogs. You shoot the dude, and then you leave the dogs behind.
Right.
I know, and that's what I didn't know. Did the person? Well, we don't know. Did the person know they were Lady Gaga's dogs? I don't know.
Well, that's
weird.
entirely
Probably not
possible.
at the time.
That's entirely possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
The dog walker actually lived across the street from a friend of mine's house.
Yeah.
And this happened in front of his house.
Ooh.
So Yeah,
Wow.
the guy was Lady Gaga's dog walker. She's over in Europe, I believe, right now. So
She's
She's
shooting,
in
yeah.
Rome. She's in Rome shooting a film.
he had the
Yeah.
dogs with him,
Wow.
and he was taking care of them for her.
They're very cute and they're back home. Okay, so anyway.